there's a lot of historical facts now that I believe in time, early in time, even the beginning of slaves, even the beginning of black was the one that was running the show throughout the whole world. You look at Asia, look at all of their statues. You know, yeah, they had small eyes, but there's a lot of people in Africa that have slanted eyes that look like me, but they're just dark and they just have different. But the hair from this, they're all kinky. All the ancient uh, all the ancient sculptures of the past
I know what you mean.
are
Yeah.
all black. So I really think that what's going on right now is the reversal of what went on years and years and thousands of years ago. That really, the ones that were being enslaved long time ago were the minority whites, and the one that was ruling the world were predominantly black.
So this will be part two of Jacob's Rule, the video I just posted, because I wanted to go a little bit further into the scriptures of Genesis 25 and 25, and then Genesis, I believe it's 27 and 40. Okay. But also when you read 2nd Ezra 6 and 9, but we're going to go back to Genesis 27 and 40. Genesis 27 and 40, and it states, and by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, meaning what? Rulership, and that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Okay. So our people were in rulership. If we claim to be the first people of this earth, why would we not have dominion over the earth, especially during the quote unquote dark ages? Okay. Now, when it says yoke right here, a yoke as imposed on the neck, right? Literally or figuratively. Okay. And of course, I showed you the slide earlier, but that's what that represents. Dominion or domination or rulership. Okay. Having this people in servitude. Okay. So right here we have the word serve. To labor, work, do work, to work for another, serve another by labor, to serve as subjects, to serve God, to serve with Levitical service, to be worked, be tilled of land, to make oneself a servant, to be worked, to compel to labor or work, cause to labor, cause to cause to serve as subjects, okay, to be led or enticed to serve. If you can find pictures out there in the dark ages or middle ages, yes, they worked the land, okay. It's hard to believe, but when you look at some photos, yeah, they were tilling the land, they was working it because they couldn't own land. Okay, it was just like in our society, we have conditions or middle class, the working class, middle higher, etc., lower class, poor. They had all that back then too. Okay, and it wasn't this racism or color, emphasis on color like it is now in the 19th, 20th century. Now, right here, when it says breaking the yoke, Isaac also prophesied that Esau would eventually grow restless under Jacob's rule, which means rulership, successfully throw off that subservience. Okay, and they did that. Some would say, well, when did they do that? The French Revolution. Really, they started gaining power and domination on the world through the 18th, 19th century. That's when they was at their peak. And now, 250 years later, we see their decline. They can't rule for a long period of time. They can't. They want you to think that they've always been in some type of rulership, but they're not. And history shows that. So right here, we're at 2nd Ezra 6 and 9, okay? And it says, for Esau is the end of the world, not literally, not the end of the world where they show the world blowing up. And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Meaning what? Once that yoke was taken off in Genesis 27 and 40, it was their rulership. Okay? They had dominion over the world. Okay? You know what I'm saying? I mean, follow with me now. And Jacob is beginning that followeth. Now Jacob is in servitude, right? We are the ones that you show on movies and, tilling the land and cotton and stuff. It wasn't like that. Okay. So right here, in this book, Wild Man Myth, not really a myth, you see the wild woman and her child, Harry, right? And you see the wild man on animals and so forth. A group of wild folk, detailed number 14. Right here you have figure 41, the wild man storming the castle tapestry. Okay. Kind of like what they did a lot of these black towns in America. They would see our people are civilized and have a high class society, and they would storm or they would burn down our towns. They did that back then too. And now they want to claim and make you look like an idiot to say that, hey, the Moors or so-called black people built these towns and civilizations and castles. All they did was take over and assume the names. Now right here it says, wild folk working the land, detail number 31. So as I stated before, they worked the land. And eventually, they were shaved down. But they're working the land, right? They're in servitude, serfs, peasants, etc. Now, of course, this makes a lot of sense, right? The black nobility, people, so-called blacks, in high positions as dukes, lords, squares, knights. Right here you have Charles V, okay? That's why you find him in the Inca charts. Okay, he's the one that allegedly funded Christopher Columbus's voyage over here to the Americas. And I think, not to get too much off topic, but, a lot of that history that we've been taught that we're thinking is all so-called white people's history, you had some bad people of color like we do over here, that were just playing their part. You look at the heraldry of the shield and stuff like that. Come on, man. It just makes too much sense. Now, right here, you have figure 65, cannibal or werewolf. As you can see right there, you have a man, a Caucasian man on all fours. What is he doing right there with the baby? And you see a head right there. Okay? It's crazy. This is where you get werewolf from. Wolf means what? Devil. Hairy. Okay? And they're telling you like Teen Wolf. Esau's hand was hairy and everything. Because they know their origins. They know where they came from, man. I don't know how many times I have to say this. It's like a mockery in your face of all these old movies that they put on television. And a lot of our men still want to sleep with these women today. I digress, though. Right here, you have the wild man on horseback. Oh, that's not real history. That's just artistry. Get the fuck out of here. Same thing right here. Now it's in color. Okay? All those crests and heraldry symbols with the lion, the rampant, and all that. That's our people. The tribe of Judah, the line of Judah. All they did was take over and, took our identity like they do all over the world. Right here, we have them tilling or working the land. Okay? Yeah. So right here it states, a serf was a unfree laborer in medieval Europe bound to the land owned by a feudal lord, meaning what, master, in exchange for physical protection, housing, and the right to farm a small plot of land for their own basic survival. Serfs were required to farm the lord's estate and pay heavy taxes. This is why when they came to America, it's like, it's free game. They even said in a poster mocking the black man that we will not be under Negro rulership. So right here, Negro rule. And this was in the 1800s. a vampire that hovers over North Carolina. See, they were smart enough, or at least back then, understood that, hey, look at the hoop earrings, common of, the Moors, or people wear hoop earrings. So they understand. This is why they left Europe, okay, and many other things, plagues, diseases, race wars, race riots, whatever. So right here we have the book, The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles. Man, I haven't read this book in a while. So Dr. John L. Johnson states, let it be well acknowledged that it was not usually throughout the Middle Ages to paint oneself the opposite of a natural dark complexion. The shades yellow, pink, white, and red were the most favorable colors, especially when having a self-portrait created, etc. Remember, the Renaissance, which means rebirth, was an age of transformation, an era of acquiring a new look or appearance in all mode of affairs, changing from the original to something fresh or new. Over 80% of all European royal portraits before, during, and after the Renaissance was painted from a swarthy, there's that word again, swarthy complexion, or swarthy complected person who chose to change with the times by displaying a white cosmetic powder or painted facial makeup. Nearly all of the remaining darker portraits were gradually secretly altered throughout the centuries to reflect the Caucasian appearance. And like the distorted 80% was overwhelmingly placed in nearly every museum, school, book, and academy throughout the world, especially here in America. The cycle life exemplify that history has a way of repeating itself. During the early roaring 20s, many white actors, actresses, and commoners frequently portrayed themselves in black faces. One was the Russian Jew Al Jolson, who received international fame. He and others exemplified the same event, whether loved or hated, that had occurred for centuries throughout Europe. It was popular throughout the latter Middle Ages to paint the noble or royal class with bright hands, which indicated a person to be a good Christian. This practice soared during the Renaissance from one's hands to the whole body. Okay. Unconsciously, today's whites or whiteys are repeating the latter Middle Ages and the Renaissance by sun-tanning themselves with lotions to require a darker look, regardless of the risk. The tragedy is that the average whitey, as was the blacks, have been institutionally brainwashed to masculate the annals of history. Okay. Very true. Very true. Let's see. Right here, around BC 1500, Europe had gradually changed from an all-black populous inhabitant to a multiracial continent. Every European nation prior to the presence of so-called whites was ruled by the indigenous Africans, who were called the Moors, meaning black or Negro. Don't get triggered by the words. During their dominance of Europe, the powerless whitey gradually increased their population to become Europe's majority, but lacked the social structure to find equality among their black superiors. The black Moorish monarchs of Europe brutally inflicted a cruel slave apartheid upon the disadvantaged and innocent whites. Their genocidal, inhumane atrocities were severely imposed without a measure of mercy and can only be compared with a reverse apartheid placed upon the Africans many centuries later. A retribution for the inhumane treatment placed upon Europe when Africa was its master. Had today's Negro avoided the process of being brainwashed concerning his own history, he would have understood that over 3 millenniums ago, the white man or whitey man was under the black man's supremacy, and had addressed the black man as master, my lord, sir, and imperial his majesty. The Bible phrases which indicates that slaves should obey their masters were first deceivingly applied to the peasant whites, or YT, by their black masters, along with other scriptures. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal or lie, nor bear arms for self-defense. These same misrepresented tactics were deceptively practiced upon the Negro prior and after the African slave trade, a process used to perpetuate apartheid, which was invented by the black masters of Europe. It was during the French Revolution of AD 1789 that ended the black power dominance in Europe. The oppressed so-called whites took the law into their own hands and reversed the cruel art of apartheid to punish the very blacks who invented its use. Okay. There were many royal black families who remained in power by whitening themselves and their children to soften the rage of the white revolutionists, a practice that continues to this day. Now, right here, Unyielding Truth. According to scientific research through carbon-14 testing, the earliest artifacts of skeletal remains on all, keyword, all continents and islands belong to people of the Negro race. Okay, let that sink in. But according to the YT man's history, or to these Pan-Africanists, you're from Africa. Make it make sense. This is why a lot of us say boule. Like, what are you talking about? Okay, I mean, Jesus, people think outside the box. Let me see. Man, I read this book in so long, but this is like one of the beginning books when I started book collecting. This book was like a breath of fresh air because I knew none of this, you know. Now, this is funny, and I'll end it on this. His name is Kenneth the Nigger Dub. Now, some people will say, well, that's Niger. No, it's nigger. That's the phonetic sounding of it. Nigger. There's no J, right? Even when you look in the book of Acts 13:1, and certain prophets were called what? Nigger. Like, I mean, come on. Nigger means black. Right here. The Christian Moorish converted Pictish king Kenneth the Nigger, black, Duff or Duffy, the great-great-grandson of Kenneth MacAlpin, ruled Scotland from AD 962 through 966. This triumphant king ruled 3 provinces in the Scottish Alba Highlands. Okay, now, it's funny when you read that, okay? I had to pull out this book. I took so many notes. Now, he said he ruled Scotland, right? So when you look at this book, let's see if I can find it. Right here. There we go. Kings of Alban were Moors. Kenneth Nigger or Dove. Now right here it states, Scotland was overrun in one district by Moors of the 15th century. By 5 centuries earlier, the kings of Alban were Moors, and one of the most celebrated of these, Kenneth or Nigger or Dub, ruled over certain districts known as the 3 Black Divisions. How long before and after that, the ascendancy remained with his swarthy nation. Okay, and right here, England, North Ireland, Scotland, Wales. Okay, I mean, come on, it makes too much sense. And of course, you got idiots. Well, swarthy doesn't mean, no, shut up. This is why you have to do your own goddamn research and not let these idiots or bots online tell you something that they know nothing about, because they got the public fool's education system right here. Swart, dark hue, moderately black, tawny. And then right here, swarthy, being of a dark hue or dusky complexion. In warm climates, the complexion of men is universally swarthy or black. Moors, Spaniards, Italians are more swarthy than the French, Germans, and English. Okay, right here, black as a swarthy African. Okay, that's what that means. And then when you go back even further to some of these idiots online, brunette. This is why they had to change the words. Because people think, oh, brunette means the hair. No, it was talking about a complexion. Brunette, see brown, a woman with a brown or dark complexion. I mean, people got to wake up out of the psychosis. When I look at myself, I'm brown. Okay, I'm copper colored. Black is a byword. Okay, so when you read these older books and it tells you how these people describe themselves, swarthy. Oh, that was a brunette woman, meaning what? Her skin color was brown or a dark hue. So this makes a lot of sense, right? But now you got all these YT people over there talking about you need to go back to your country, right? Not knowing that those the British Isles are not even their original land. Of course, the intermixture and everything else, but no. Okay, real good book, and this was written by a so-called white man. Okay, all right here. The surname first given to their remote authors, a surname signifying the black man, right? Persinius nigger or niger, whatever term you want to use. Why would a white man name himself nigger or niger, right? Come on. And then, of course, through time, the intermixture, the whiting out of the gene or blood pool. And then you have certain Caucasians with Negro blood, and they don't know real history themselves, and they grow to hate the people that they were created from. The irony, right?
Sicilians were spawned by niggers.
Come again?
No, it's a fact. Yeah. You see, Sicilians have black blood pumping through their hearts. And no, if you don't believe me, you can look it up. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, you see, the Moors conquered Sicily, and the Moors are niggers. So you see, way back then, Sicilians were like wops from northern Italy. They all had blonde hair and blue eyes. But, well, then the Moors moved in there and, well, they changed the whole country. They did so much fucking with Sicilian women, that they changed the whole bloodline forever. That's why blonde hair and blue eyes became black hair and dark skin. You know, it's absolutely amazing to me to think that to this day, hundreds of years later, that Sicilians still carry that nigger gene.
Right here. But the traces of our black ancestry are visibly existent in 100 surnames. Some of these denote complexion, others do so, but indirectly. The first class includes a great many. There are the clans of the Uri, the Dogo, spelt Dubgo, or black strangers in their own genealogy. There are all the varieties of dub, black, such as Duff, Dow, McDuff, and others that are Dons, Cars, and Darbs, with their equivalent Duns, Browns, Grays, and Blacks. All these are color names showing a black or tawny ancestor. Okay, so that's what he stated, right? Black or tawny ancestor. So then we have this bull. Origin of the Anglo-Saxon race, a study of the settlement of England and the tribal origin of the Old English people. Okay. Man, I opened up this book in a minute. Let's see if I can find it. Chapter 7, Our Darker Forefathers. Okay. Not going to read everything. Now, right here, when it says that this consideration of a probable origin of the great portion of brunettes, meaning what? People of color or complexion. Okay. Let me see, brunette. Right here. A woman with a brown or dark complexion. So when they use brunette, they're talking about the skin tone, right? In 2 of South Midland counties of England leads us that of color names as surnames and place names, which may probably have been derived from their original settlers. Okay. Right here, for example, there is a common name, Brown. This has been derived from the Anglo-Saxon brawn, signifying brown. It is not reasonable to doubt that when our forefathers called a man brawn or brown, they gave him this name as descriptive to his brown complexion. Okay. Now, right here, Anglo-Saxon settlement of England. If the brunette character of the people of any part of England at the present time is due to survival of the race characters of the Celts of British Bronze Age, and if this same character has been caused partly by people of a darker complexion and broad heads settling as immigrants among the fair-headed and long-headed Teutons in other parts of England, this racial character in both cases can be traced along different lines to the same distant source. Okay. Right here, there's another old word used by the Anglo-Saxons to denote black or brown people. Black, brown, the word swart. The personal names of Seward or Stewart may have been derived from this word and may have originally denoted people of a dark brown or black complexion. Okay. I could go on. I have old videos if you want to check it out as well. But yeah, they know. Okay. See that? The Anglo-Saxon forefathers came of a broad-headed people of a brunette type. We can point in England to the fact that broad skulls are found in Anglo-Saxon graves. And to the historical fact that they were brown people. And I'm not talking about Mexicans, okay? In England during the Anglo-Saxon period. And there the evidence must be left. It may, however, be borne in mind that a brown passes into dark brown or black. The literary evidence concerning brown Anglo-Saxons is strengthened by that relating to the black men or to those designated by the old brown black word sword, and in some cases perhaps even the old word done. Okay. So you see why they had to white out everything and give you a fake ass history and some other bullshit. But you know, oh, you're Afro. I'm not no fucking Afrocentric. I'm not no supremacist. I'm just trying to dissect the truth and give it to you in pieces so you can swallow it. Pause. Peace.